We'll get started. Recap of last time. We spoke about the main study was Pua and or I'm sorry, we talked a little about Pua and Shifra, which was the previous study, but I wanted to mention that they were ordered to kill all the Hebrew male children because the Pharaoh didn't want any more Israelite people because they were continuing to grow stronger and more in number, and they were the slaves of the Egyptians at the time. We'll see in scripture that that's a pattern that how God deals with Israel. They fall into idolatry, worshiping things other than their God, and then God allows other people that are not under him to come in and kind of take over the Israelites, kick them out of the land, all these different things. It's a big pattern that goes back and forth. Israel goes in idolatry. God sends in somebody to, I guess, kind of put them in their place. So that's what's going on here. But Pharaoh notices that the Hebrews are becoming more populated, and he doesn't want any trouble, so he orders these two Hebrew midwives to kill every male Hebrew child. And they kind of get witty and say, oh, well, the Hebrew women are very strong and their babies are out and already ready to go before we're even there to help deliver them. So then he orders someone else to start killing the babies. And so Jochebed hid her baby for 3 months, thought he was special, and then after 3 months was no longer able to conceal this child, so she put him in a basket into the river, and Miriam, his sister, followed the basket, which was found by Pharaoh's daughter bathing in the river. And Pharaoh's daughter took the baby as her own, and then Miriam, Moses' sister, said, oh, well, wouldn't you like a Hebrew wet nurse to take care of your baby? She said, well, yes, of course. So Miriam went and got Moses' actual mother to come and be the wet nurse for him. So his own mother nursed him, probably both at the palace and then also at her own home until he was weaned. And then it's not really known how much of an interaction they had after that. And we also talked about how advanced the Egyptians were in their technologies, that again they were able to build the pyramids. And lots of people speculate how this is done. My favorite speculation is that aliens helped. So I'm not saying anything for or against that, I'm just saying it's my favorite, most interesting one. But there are now there's coming out different technologies, especially there's one called Therify that uses this targeted plasma ray, and the contraption that they've come up with looks a lot like there's hieroglyphics depicting this long, you might have seen them, a long large light bulb that's pointed at someone. So there's actually a contraption now that helps to heal people on a cellular level called Therify that looks very similar to the Egyptian hieroglyphs. So anyways, they were very advanced with their stone cutting techniques, and I believe they were able to use sound in order to move these large boulders and things. There's actually, in Florida, there's a place called the Coral Castle, where a gentleman said that he discovered the technologies that were used in ancient times to move these large stones, and he created this huge castle made out of coral by himself. He's an elderly gentleman, and these coral pieces weigh hundreds of pounds, if not, a ton. And he was able to construct this whole coral castle. You can look it up, Coral Castle in Florida, using this technology that I believe the Egyptians used and other ancient civilizations used to move these large bricks. So anyway, the Egyptians had the Hebrews as slaves. Moses knew that he was a Hebrew, even though he was raised in Pharaoh's house, and he witnessed an Egyptian man kill one of the Hebrew slaves, or mistreating one of the Hebrew slaves, and he became angry and looked around, made sure nobody was there, and murdered this Egyptian man. And then later he was speaking with some of the Hebrew slaves, and they said, well, what if we piss you off? Are you going to kill us like you did that Egyptian? And then Moses knew that people knew what he did, so he ran off to Midian, and I believe that is where we stopped last time. So we are in Exodus 2, verse 15. Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses, but Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian. And we don't usually go over we do. We talk about the names of things. So, Midian, oh, did I click on the wrong one? Midian means, I will tell you presently, maybe I won't. Here it is, Midian. Midian means strife. So this is a land where things are challenging, and again, this is not a place of the Hebrew people. So this is a place of people that worship pagan gods, but Moses fled there in order to protect himself, and he sat down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away. But Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. So Moses was a man of good character, and he helped out these ladies. Again, ladies' Bible study, 7 sisters. So it doesn't say how many brothers they had, but 7 sisters, that's a big family. 18, and when they came to Reuel, their father, he said, how is it that you came home so early today? So I'm not sure exactly what took place there, how maybe that's like a daily thing that these women would go to grab their things, and the shepherds would come in and shoo them away, and then they'd have to wait until all these shepherds watered all their flocks. But Moses was there to get the shepherds out of the way so these ladies could return home early. In Reuel.
Well, yeah, they were women, so women go last.
Correct. Yep. Which
Right.
is, it's an unfortunate thing that I believe is currently being rectified. And I'm going to do a plug here for my friend Chris Blackaby. He's an international minister, and he has an incredible, I'll put it in the text thread, an incredible series about the feminine aspect of God. And I know that we talked a little bit about it when we spoke about the El Hai Shaddai, how it means like the provider, the many-breasted one, the one that gathers everyone to themselves. So unfortunately, the feminine aspect of God, which is, again, if we think about women, they're comforters, they're supporters, they're all of those things, and those aspects of God have been diminished because of the misinterpretation of what happened in the garden, thinking that Eve was the one that caused the fall of man, which, as we know now that we've done our study, that it was the offense that Adam had towards God that caused the fall, not Eve eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So, so my friend Chris, and then a few other minister friends are revealing this hidden nature of God as quote unquote mother. So, because when Jesus said, I'm leaving now so that the comforter can come to you, when you think of comforter, do you think male or female? who comforts, the mother or the father. So
Right, the
I'll just
mother, yeah.
I'll talk a little bit about one of Chris's favorite stories. So he says there's a child, a little boy, and everybody tells him, mother and father, don't run up and down the stairs. Don't run up and down the stairs. You're going to get hurt. Don't run up and down the stairs. So they hear the little child running up and down the stairs, and then up, thump, 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 boom. Child falls down the stairs. So the father comes to the child, and the child's laying there. He's got a hurt knee or whatever. He's not too hurt. And what does the father say to the child? I
Told you not to run up and down the stairs.
told you not to run up and down the stairs. What does the mother do?
Puts a Band-Aid on his boo-boo.
Yeah, come on. Oh, it's okay. They're there now. They're there. So that's the comforter, right? Oh, it's okay. But so that's the part of God that has been missing in the church. So it's all about the law, and have you broken the law, and you better come to church, and you better tithe, and you better go to Bible study, and you better feed the poor, and you better do this. And if you don't, you'll be in big trouble. I told you not to do that. Whereas the mother aspect of God, if you don't do the thing, or if you do the thing on purpose and run up and down the stairs and then fall and hurt yourself, the mother is there to comfort and to bring you back to that center place where you can, stop all that, all the crying and whatever, and get back on the right path. So that's what we are going to be privileged to see coming back into the body of Christ, that motherly aspect in leadership and in the churches. So that was a huge tangent. So they went back to, and Ruel means friend of God. So even though these people are not necessarily God's people, this gentleman's name means friend of God. So he's asking, how come you're back so early? And they said, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us and watered the flock. So they thought he was an Egyptian, probably because of his dress, even though he most likely didn't look like the rest of the Egyptians. And he said to his daughters, where is he? And why is it that you left the man? Call him here, so that he may come and eat with us. Moses accepted the invitation and settled there with him. And in time, Ruel gave Moses his daughter Zipporah to be his wife. Zipporah means bird, which, another tangent, which is really funny. I downloaded this app on my phone. It's called the Merlin Bird something. Merlin, it's called Merlin Bird. It looks like that. And if you push the record button, especially in the morning, it's really fun because all the birds are singing. It'll tell you what bird is singing. And so here we have a lot of roosters in the morning, but on the app it doesn't call them roosters. It calls them red jungle fowl. So I just thought that was fun and funny. So because you
fun and funny.
Fun and the red jungle fowl. So whenever Jared and I see the chickens on the side of the road, there's a red jungle fowl. So anyways, Zipporah means bird. So she was now his wife and bore him a son, and he named him Gershom, for he said, I have been a stranger in a strange land. And Gershom means foreigner, which was also the name of Levi, which was Jacob's son. It was his firstborn's name. And it came to pass, verse 23, years passed, and the king of Egypt died, but the Israelites continued to groan under the burden of slavery. They cried out for help, and their cry rose up to God. God heard their groaning and remembered his covenant promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He looked down on the people of Israel and knew it was time to act. So Exodus 3. One day Moses was tending the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, which is another name. I don't know why this guy has two different names. Maybe because he's a priest. And Jethro means his abundance. So he was tending his sheep, and the angel of the Lord appeared in a blazing fire from the middle of a bush. And Moses stared in amazement. Though the bush was engulfed in flames, it didn't burn up. In the land of Israel, there is a tree. It's called the acacia tree. And because of the sap that is in this tree and the heat at certain times of the year, this tree will spontaneously catch fire. And interestingly, the seed of the acacia tree, the dormancy of the seed of the acacia tree is only broken by fire, which there's a whole bunch of things that that we could go into with that. I think about like the baptism of fire, like the New Testament says you must be baptized in fire. So that's an interesting thing. And then the Holy Spirit fire, all of those things. But the acacia wood is what the Ark of the Covenant was made out of. So the Ark of the Covenant was made out of acacia wood and then covered in gold. And some rabbis also say that Noah's Ark was also built out of acacia wood, even though it's called gopher wood, that's another name for acacia wood. So Moses sees this tree burning here and he says, this is amazing. So I'm assuming that normally when the acacia tree burns, it is consumed by its own flame, and then the seeds are germinating after the tree is burned. So Moses, when the Lord saw Moses coming to take a closer look, God called to him from the middle of the bush. So that's an interesting thing too. At first it says the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire from the middle of the bush. And then it says the Lord himself spoke to Moses. So it's possible that the angel of the Lord prepared the way for the Lord to then come through and speak to Moses directly. And the Lord said to Moses, the Lord saw Moses coming to take a closer look, and God called to him from the middle of the bush, Moses, Moses. Here I am, Moses replied. So it's similar to when God called Adam, when Adam had gone astray, and instead of hiding himself from this new, probably terrifying thing, Moses didn't hide himself. He said, here I am. And I kind of want to zip through this. It's a very, very interesting story. Highly recommend you go and read it. So God tells Moses to take off your shoes, and Moses is like, what's going on? And God says, I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he tells him that he has heard the cry of the Egyptian people and that now is the time to act. So he is he's sending Moses back to Pharaoh, remembering that this is Pharaoh's son, and also remembering that this is probably somebody that Moses knew growing up. And so he tells him to take off your shoes, you're on holy ground. And that's another interesting kind of side note here, that when human beings, and you can measure this with, I have this really neat stick, it's in storage in Buffalo, that when you hold both sides of it, it lights up and plays a sound. So if I hold one side of it and you hold the other side of it, and then I touch you, it creates a circuit. So it'll light up. It's a really cool thing. And if I hold it, you hold it, and we both have our shoes off on the ground, it'll light up because it creates a circuit. So it's a good thing to go out and take your shoes off on the earth, because all of the mechanisms of the human body generate a lot of positive ions. So when we touch the earth is negatively charged. So it balances out a lot of those positive ions, which if there's too many positive ions in the human body, it's called free radicals, and it causes oxidation, which causes early cell death. So when Moses took off his shoes, he created a circuit with the earth, which is interesting. And so God tells Moses to that he wants him to go down and free these people, free the Egyptians, or free the Israelites from the Egyptians. And Moses says, if I go to tell them, who am I, if I go say just the God of your ancestors have sent me, won't they ask what is his name? Because again, we talked about this before, and we've been going through all of these names. There's power in a name. And God replies to Moses, I am who I am. So the Hebrew words for that is Ehier Asher Ehier. So, or it's Haya, Haya Asher Haya, which Haya in Hebrew means life, and Ehier means I am. And so it's again translated, I am who I am. There's other translations again in the Hebrew texts that say I am what I will become. And then one of my favorites, because it reminds me of the Eminem song, and then I get to sing and do a little dance every time I think about it, is I am what you say I am. And we've talked about this before as well. So if I put God in a box, that's how he'll appear to me, because I've done that, not him. So he is whoever we say he is. So if I say that God is El Shaddai, the great provider that will always provide everything that I need, that's who he is. If I say he's Jehovah Rapha, my healer, that's who he is. So it's an interesting concept to think about. So that's who God says for Moses to tell, if the Hebrews ask, what's the name of this God that you say is our God that is going to deliver us? So, and then he goes on to say, say this to the people that Yahweh, the God of your ancestors, God of Abraham, this is my eternal name, my name for remembrance of all generations. And to call he says to call the leaders. So Moses is supposed to go down there, call the leaders, tell him that God has been watching and he sees how the Egyptians have been treating them, and remembering they were led into captivity again because of idolatry and because of unbelief and all of these things. They were led, into captivity. So the Israelites, he says, they'll accept his message, but the king of Egypt will not let you go unless you show him a mighty hand of force. So he goes through, and he's 21. He says he will cause the Egyptians to look favorably upon you, and they will give you gifts when you go, so you will not leave empty-handed. And in 22 it says, every Israelite woman will ask for articles of silver and gold and fine clothing from her Egyptian neighbors and from foreign women in their houses, and you will dress your sons and daughters with these, stripping the Egyptians of their wealth. So I was sitting with this and I'm like, God, what does that even mean? Why would the women ask for all of these wonderful spoils, I guess you would call them? And I heard, because this is not a war. It's not a war. God is just, because usually the men would go in and decimate everything and then take the spoils of war and be on their way. But because God is leading this, it's not a war. It's the women, the gentle ones, are going to ask, and then they're going to take these things. So Exodus 4. And Moses protested again, as we often do when God asks us to do uncomfortable things that are outside of our wheelhouse. He says, what if they don't believe me? What if they won't listen? What if they say the Lord never appeared to you? Which, how often does somebody say, I heard God, or I heard God tell me to move to Hawaii. You're a crazy person. Well, maybe, but here I am. So Exodus 4, Moses protested again. Then Lord asked him, what's in your hand? A shepherd's staff. So then God goes through all of these things that are going to happen, that he's going to be able to perform all of these signs and wonders to prove to the Israelites, or to the Egyptians, that he is walking with the power of God. And Moses says, well, I can't talk very well. People say that he may have had a stutter. In some of the ancient texts that Jared's been studying, it's said that he took a coal and put it to his lips so that he might have better speech, and it actually made it worse. So I don't know anything about that other than that. But so and then Moses says he's going to return to Egypt, and that's in verse 18 of Exodus 4. I'm going to write that down so I remember where we go to next time. And just some food for thought as Moses is going into Egypt. So 40 years had passed between the time that he had murdered the Egyptian, and now when he's ready to go back. And it doesn't say whether or not Pharaoh's daughter was still alive, the woman that raised him. So just kind of thinking about what that would be like for him to go back into this land, not knowing whether his sister was still alive, or whether his mother or his Egyptian mother was still alive. But he was obedient to God and went to do a difficult, challenging thing, and we'll find out next week how that works out for him.